Okay, welcome back then, early March 1856, and it's been a few days. I took a few days off, or had intended to only take a few days off anyway, because I wanted to have a bit of a think about the strategy really for 56. It can be very easy and kind of tempting when sort of session playing to kind of lurch from turn to turn and kind of make it up as you go along. And to be clear, I don't feel like I have done that or anything like that as yet. And certainly the operation, the kind of invasion of southern Hungary, was a bit impulsive, but it had a fairly sound rationale, even in retrospect. Even though it went wrong, it feels like there was a bit of a kind of brief window of opportunity. It feels like the Austrians have rather dropped the ball a bit in northern Italy, and we had defeated the Austrian army quite seriously in a number of engagements in the Zvornik Gap and at Sarajevo, and I felt that this might be an opportunity for us to exploit. I think it's fair to say that wasn't sound, or at least in this case it certainly didn't come off. But it can anyway be an easy thing to do. All plans set should have a degree of plasticity, of course, but it can be very easy to kind of make it up as you go along, and you don't really want to do that. And I think the plan for 56 is going to be, in the broadest possible kind of terms, to try and end the war as quickly as possible. The reason being is I think the longer the war goes on, the greater the danger from our other northern neighbour becomes. Now, they're still dealing with a kind of a rebellion in the southern Caucasus, so that looks increasingly like it's being wrapped up. And Russia is, I believe, still at war with Sweden. Let's double check, see if there's any kind of clear progress in that. So we can actually see the Swedes have managed to get quite small forces quite deep into sort of Karelia, even east of Finland. So yeah, it's still very much at war with. And of course, Prussia has got involved as well. I should have mentioned that actually in an earlier sort of. I think it was only a few turns ago. Prussia has got involved also in a war with the Swedes. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. But the longer this kind of drags on, the more problematic it's going to become. And of course, at some point, they may even offer terms to Piedmont, Sardinia, which will release a large part of their army as well. Anyway, that's one of the reasons why I took some time out. I wanted to have a bit of a think about the plan for 56, what we're going to do militarily. We are going to be much more cautious. We're going to try and keep our main forces. I mean, in the short term, we need to focus on recovery of the situation. Of course, we've just experienced a fairly significant defeat. Omar Pasha's army was deposited into Sarajevo to speed up kind of, organizational and cohesion regain. We promoted Abdi Pasha and regave him command of the Imperial Guard. If we keep these forces in fairly close proximity to each other, Omar Pasha, as the senior 3-star general in the theatre, will always kind of offer, if you like, his kind of expertise, his excellence to the other commands in the theatre. So we want to try and kind of keep that configuration, I suppose. And the plan, I think, is also going to be, once our situation is recovered, to kind of clear the left flank, clear the kind of Dalmatian coastline, and look at kind of maybe securing Zagreb, and possibly from there move up to Steinmark and Vienna, instead of crossing the Sava and the Drava, which is, it's two kind of river crossings, could be rather tricky. We could even possibly look to split our forces slightly, but not in a wide way. We could have a force in Zagreb, another force move up into Slavony, which would have been retaken then. We can see where that Austrian army, under I think it was Mitrovic, fell back to. It looks like he's back in sort of Banat or Sombor or something like that. So he's kind of moved back. That's quite a good position for them as well to be, because if I move up, they can instantly kind of slam into our flank, into our lines of communication. So anyway, we're going to, I think, probably try by early summer to kind of clear the Dalmatian coastline, secure the left flank, maybe even as far north as Fiume, and then we're going to look to kind of wheel round Zagreb. And then once we've got Zagreb, we're going to try and punch through towards Vienna. And the idea is by sort of, hopefully this year, we want to upset the Austrians enough that it will kind of seal the deal. So we're going to try and end the war this year, but we're going to try and also do it cautiously, nothing too crazy. So that's the reason why I took a bit of time off. As I said, it had only been intended to be a couple of days, but was to formulate a bit of a plan, a bit of a strategy. The other reason is that a friend bought me a game around Christmas time, and I had watched some YouTube videos and thought it's probably not my kind of thing. On the surface, it looked like a bit of a kind of beer and pretzels sort of strategy game. And I really only was going to play it for kind of appearance's sake a little bit, and it turns out it was a really good game and kind of instantly ate up the next 50 hours of my gaming time. So I thought, well, I'll extend my sort of my kind of strategy holiday, my kind of time off to have a bit of a think and a plan. But anyway, back in the saddle. One interesting thing economically this year, 56, is going to be that we will have a continuous rail line linking Constantinople to Salonika, which is really, really good. That's probably going to double, and that's the tobacco belt as well. That's going to double our tobacco production. We've also got another section of railroad in Smyrna, and I think this turn, actually, early March, 1,500 private capital. We've got the steel, the manufactured goods required. We're going to set up another, or begin the construction, I should say. That's, oh gosh, of another section of rail line, and we're going to place this section in Bursa, and ultimately we're going to link Smyrna. Yeah, 641 left. We're going to link Smyrna up to kind of Izmit, and that'll be the next section of rail line that'll be in place, will be in Izmit. That will increase our production of opium, and in Izmit we have fruit plantation. But Izmit we're going to sort of look to kind of nurture as a possible kind of late industrial revolution city. So the later kind of industries that we get, electronics and things like that, we could maybe look at Izmit as a bit of a kind of bit of a project location. The main thing is we're going to try and keep industrial development, for the most part, fairly centralised. We've got a canned goods shop that's now been completed in Bursa, also, and we want to increase the rate of conversion of canned goods really into manufactured goods. The main reason being is we just produce too many canned goods. We have to periodically kind of turn off conversion of agricultural goods into canned goods. So we want to find a way of basically cannibalizing our agricultural production into manufacturing, and that's sort of what canned goods does for us. So a rail line in Bursa would be really good for that. Fruits is one of those few agricultural goods that, frankly, you don't really produce enough of. If we have a look at our exports, I mean, at the moment we've got 20 available on the kind of foreign market, but it is something that we generally can't keep up with. I mean, if we look at kind of cereals, we produce way too many cereals for the time being. Luckily, we're not at the point yet where cereals is going into any kind of wastage, but cereals and fish we produce ample of. Fruits is a little bit tighter, so increasing fruit production certainly wouldn't go amiss. We'll also look at maybe a piece of railway in Sinop. We've got Sinop is a candidate really for a kind of first-rate industrial city, along with Ankara and Smyrna. So Ankara, if you like, Constantinople is the number one city. The second phase cities, which we've already got well underway, is Smyrna, Sinop, and Ankara, sort of in that order, really. They're going to be out, and then the third tier cities will be kind of Bursa, Izmir. We've already got some small industrial development in Bursa, and basically the other cities in sort of the Anatolian Peninsula. But yeah, in terms of military moves, we're going to keep the Imperial fleet in Constantinople. I did notice that the raiding fleet is kind of set to sail. It's in pretty good order, so we're going to look to do that. Now, one thing I have done is I've sent a request to the British that we get access for resupplying their ports. The reason being is raiding the Mediterranean isn't really going to do very much. The reason being is the Austrians have removed their kind of merchant commerce from the Med, but they are fairly active in Northern Europe. So to that end, we are going to send a raiding fleet really to function more as a kind of escort, and we're going to set to fleet interception. And we're going to look to engage these Austrian ships in the North Sea. I think that's probably going to be a combination of merchants and probably raiders also. But yeah, if we can get kind of port access to the sort of British East Coast, that will allow our raiders to kind of resupply, reorganise the British ports instead of having to come all the way back to Constantinople. In terms of military moves in our actual campaign, I mean, we've got Abdul Karim Nadir back. We're going to get Hussein Avni all the way back to Zvornik. The reason being is his forces have taken a real drubbing as well. We want to get some of these forces actually inside the fortress to accelerate their kind of, accelerate their rest, recuperation, and reorganisation. Now, there is a cavalry division. What we're going to do is we're going to send this cavalry division into Abdul Karim Nadir's command, and we're going to detach the remnants of his utterly destroyed cavalry division, and we're going to send that south, and we're going to get that to enter structure. So that's basically going to reconstruct inside the kind of the fortress that we're building at Zvornik. Now in Zvornik we've got 30 days remaining for the depot size 1. That's going to be an important thing also for a more serious campaign that sort of cuts a bit deeper into the Austrian sort of hide, really, is having the logistics to be able to do that, and building up our depot much more significantly in Zvornik is going to be kind of a zero-sum there, I think. Having a level 2 or 3 depot will just give our forces much more freedom, I think, to be able to kind of be a bit more dramatic. We should keep in mind also that at Kataro there is actually a depot here. It's a size 1 depot. This is a fortress, and it's a well-defended fortress, so that's going to require a pretty serious siege. And at some point, we're going to probably, once Hussein Avni's force is reconstituted, we're going to move him through Sarajevo into Kataro. That means that if he's engaged, or Abdul Karim Nadir is engaged, either one of those can be supported by Omar Pasha as the theatre commander. And we're just going to basically sit Hussein Avni. We'll give him a month, maybe a little bit longer, 6 weeks in Zvornik, and then we'll move him to Kataro. And yeah, we're just going to basically sit outside the fortress. We won't storm it until we're absolutely sure that the fortress has been badly damaged. We'll move the main fleet up also into the Adriatic and lend its kind of gunfire to the siege. And once Kataro is secured, my thinking in this is there's a pretty good chance the Austrians will re-secure Dalmatia. This may even attract the Austrians a little bit southward. We can see that a really large Austrian force that was up in sort of the Fiume area has now moved towards Zagreb. We need to keep an eye on that. That is a pretty significant force. I think what we're actually going to do is Abdul Karim Nadir is already back. How long would it take Abdul Karim Nadir to move back here? Impossible movement terrain, are you sure? 13 days. Force march, 55% chance. See, my worry is that the Austrians really try and exploit this situation and make the most of it, which, I couldn't really blame them if they did. It's exactly what I would do. The other option, of course, is we could switch Omar Pasha with Abdul Karim Nadir, but then what if this extremely large Austrian army swings through Bosnia or Bihać and then moves into kind of Sarajevo? We'll set Abdul Karim Nadir to retreat if engaged, I think. That's the kind of safe option. Retreat if engaged, and yeah. But we're going to keep Omar Pasha to hold at all costs. So yeah, if he's engaged, we don't want him. His force will, just absolutely fall apart if it's kind of if it's hit really hard now. So we'll just get him to fall back if engaged. That's pretty much it. That's going to be all of our military moves, I think. Let's have a quick look at the kind of colonial theatres. We've still got an ongoing kind of running kind of conflict with sort of brigands in Palestine. We've got our force set to offensive and to engage that force. In terms of the main colonial conflict, then nothing new. One turn for a mission. Yeah, we'll keep him outside the fortress for one more term, I think. Zarif Pasha, his force is still pretty kind of badly organised, and once it's kind of organised, its supplies are in good enough shape, we might look to kind of press east. I suspect that force, the Yemeni force in Hadramaut, will probably move towards Aden or Taiz, or may even seek to engage him in the field of Sana. We have inflicted fairly hefty casualties on the Yemenis, actually it should be said, over the last 6 months. We've definitely had some defeats in our own right, but we have in the field destroyed sizable numbers of Yemeni insurgents that might be having an impact. Certainly, our situation feels less perilous, and we have a much smaller force there also. I mean, we actually subtracted an entire infantry division, so we'll keep an eye on that. We're going to keep him in a sort of static position for the time being, hold at all costs, and just look at kind of unit reorganisation for the time being. Everything's kind of fairly quiet in Libya, as it should be. It's a formal colony. In terms of combat reports from the last term, then nothing really significant to report there. No big engagements or anything like this. Austria captured Arisa, of course. Here we need to keep an eye on this kind of Austrian force. I should point out that there is an Austrian brigade that's kind of operating behind our lines and is doing pretty sterling work, to be fair to them. we're going to engage. You know, we actually, the cavalry division that we had being constructed in Smyrna, we embarked at Smyrna and disembarked at Salonika, and we're going to look to kind of move in now. The net is closing on this force, but it's done its job. You know, look at the forces it's tying up. You know, it's done fairly sterling work, really, to its credit. Let's have a look. 18 days, 19 days. I think we'll keep the forces in the surrounding region just set to an offensive posture and to attack at all costs. So if this force tries to move into, you know, any of the surrounding regions, it will have a hard sort of time. We've got the cavalry division. The cavalry division, of course, is a much more sizable force. It's going to be is what, you know, 3,000 kind of a cavalry division. Anyways, 3,000 sort of odd men. Is it 3,000 men? Yeah, 3,000 men. 3,000 horses, 24 guns. That would be more than enough to kind of deal with a brigade, I think. It's not commanded by any special general or anything like that, but once this situation is kind of wrapped up, we do need to kind of keep a bit of a permanent light force, screening force just south of Montenegro. That will be less necessary once we've dealt with the Dalmatian coastline. That's the other thing that's behind my thinking here on our left flank, is the fact that they can funnel troops, you know, almost kind of Cambodia, late 60s style, through Montenegro into kind of northern Greece, southern Serbia, and we don't want that. So we want to make sure that this area is firmly secured under our control, and that we can begin to move our left flank north and kind of maybe sort of culminate a couple of armies into Zagreb. Well, that's the plan. No big river crossings here, anything like that, but it does mean Kataro has to be dealt with, the big kind of coastal fort. That's it. Yeah, that's it militarily. A couple of technologies we've developed then completely understand and that can harness the possibilities of multiple effect evaporator, and we're learning the principles of molasses extraction, centrifuges, and we can begin to research those. I won't do this with every science thing because there are so many, but we can see that so molasses extraction centrifuges is going to principally affect sugar, as we might imagine, and the other thing was, what was it? Multiple effect evaporator. There'll be some people watching this that knows exactly what that is, probably. Maybe it pertains to their vocation or something like that. I'm going to scroll. If I don't see it fairly soon, I think we'll just bail on it, and it'll have to just be a case of, I wonder if I can actually get it up by double clicking on that. No, I can't. 10 years of playing the game, you thought I'd know that. Here we go. So that actually just allows the construction of sugar plantations then. I'm gathering, yeah, sugar plantations, 2 structures. I'm guessing sugar and rum. That's not something that's going to feature too much with us, unfortunately. We don't have any kind of West Indian territories, anything like that. That might change. I think that in real life, I'm sure they had sugarcane plantations in either Rhodes or Cyprus, or that may be memories of a European Universalis too, actually. But anyway, we'll see what happens. I don't think that's going to affect us too much in the short term anyway. Economically, let's have a quick look at exports. Domestic market sales, 64 units for 207. That's pretty decent. About half in terms of the sort of revenue yield, but only, you know, not half in terms of exports. That suggests that obviously exports are going to be heavily bent towards agricultural goods, low yield items. But 44 merchandises for 110 isn't anything to turn our noses up at all. That's, you know, going to be 300 and just about 320 private revenue per turn. That's good stuff. And yeah, we make tax on those transactions as well. So that's not like an abstract thing that's just limited to the private sector. The state makes on that, so that's fine. We've got 5 gems as a part of a kind of randomized event, which is good. Let's check out gems inventory. We have to keep a careful eye on this because we did see a slight bump. Yeah, 8 gems is pretty hefty going. That's going to be okay. One of the things I did, because if you'll recall, we did have a slight bump in inflation. Went up to 3%. What I've done to try and sort of offset that or mitigate that is to just carefully control kind of gems distribution, so that we always make sure that we're basically selling more than we're converting. So the majority of gems will be sold on the domestic market. It's going to be 3 units will shift in the next fortnight. That's good. That will yield a really nice revenue. And then 2 will go for conversion. This was set to mostly conversion, but because of the amount of transactions in our economy now anyway, we don't need gems conversion to kind of boost our state revenue. We're going to start making more and more state revenue just on the various kinds of tax, and tariffs that we have in place. So we want to focus gems on kind of domestic market sales, and of course this is a really, really high yield luxury item, so it's great that we've got 8 of those. That's it pretty much. Nothing else significant to report, so I'm going to bang you on hold, past turn, and yeah, we'll see you in late March. Okay, welcome back then, late March, and nothing too serious or significant to report. Thankfully, the Austrians did not make any kind of serious big play to try and exploit the situation in Bosnia. So to that end, we have Hussein Avni, safe and tight in the fortress at Zvornik. We're going to keep him there for the time being. Yeah, there's nothing else to really do. We've managed to detach the Cavalry Division from Abdulkarim Nadir. I foolishly don't know why I cancelled the move of Khurshid Pasha. I think to just kind of clear up all of these kind of various kind of orders in order to get clear. Anyway, Khurshid Pasha, I should say, Osman Pasha did not move and sort of link up with Abdulkarim Nadir. That ended up not being in any way kind of serious or significant for us, but we are going to move to get his cavalry division in place. We're also going to give him command of that division properly, and yeah, forced march wouldn't really be necessary in this case. It's a cavalry division. So Abdulkarim Nadir, yeah, he's received some replacements. The supply situation very generally is poor. Very, very poor. The supply depot is 15 days away from being completed. And we're going to obviously instantly enlarge it. I think what we're going to do to consolidate our situation further is we are going to build a fortress at Sarajevo. And we're going to add a depot to Sarajevo also. That may seem like overkill, having a kind of fortress at Zvornik and then one adjacent at Sarajevo, but it's going to take time to enlarge the depot, so having a couple of smaller depots to begin with serves our purpose, frankly. Yeah, next turn, early April, the depot at Zvornik will be kind of completed, and we can then look to enlarge that depot, which we will do straight away, and that'll take another, I don't know, 60 days, something like that. So yeah, we do want to really kind of address the supply situation. I think what I'm going to do also is, these are quite cheap sort of things to construct. 28 mining goods, 8 conscripts, 20. So we've got the manpower. There's only 4 officers per. We've only got 15 officers. We're going to build a few supply wagons, and we are going to set up a bit of a kind of maybe a bit of a system, a kind of running between, say, Sofia and Zvornik, something like that. Yeah, start moving sort of supply wagons back and forth, basically. So we'll build 2. And we'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, but we do need to kind of set up a bit of a system for supply wagons. Let's have a look. So let's move these to force march, 35% chance, may as well. And then we'll return those. And yeah, I think that's just what we're going to have to do, really. Now we've got a couple more supply wagons. We've got another supply wagon here. Let's have a look. Let's detach this from Omar Pasha's command. And we're going to hook that up with Abdulkarim Nadir's command. So yeah, we're just kind of like juggling supplies around a little bit at the moment. There's a bit of a shortage. It's just because even though on paper this all kind of makes sense, we're not doing anything wrong. We've got a supply depot being built here. We even captured some supplies that split. In the last analysis, it doesn't matter if you've got a handful of small depots in a region. It's just not going to be enough to supply. We've got 3 standing armies of about 80,000 men apiece. Plus smaller forces in theatre also. So there's just a lot of mouths to feed, a lot of boots to replace, and a lot of ammunition that's expended very quickly in battles also. So we need to kind of beef up our kind of supply apparatus, really, in kind of Bosnia and southern Serbia. Before we can kind of, that will facilitate our forces, reorganizing much more quickly, getting replacements and so on. But also it will mean that long term we're going to be in a position to conduct much more kind of aggressive maneuvers against the Austrians. Looking at Northern Italy, no real major change. You get a slight sense that maybe the Austrians might be recovering the situation here, but it's fog of war. We just don't know what's going on. But in the last analysis, the Italians have done very well indeed. Let's have a quick look at foreign policy just to make sure that they haven't already. No, they've not cut a deal yet with Piedmont Sardinia. That's good news for us. But yeah, sort of all quiet on the all quiet on the Western Front. Quite literally. A couple of small engagements against really these kind of insurgents. I kind of noticed this. These insurgents are very adept. It's a Turkish victory on the surface, an Ottoman victory, but they suffer no casualties and inflict 650, and they only have a force of 450. So you can see these forces are really adept. These kind of regulars are, fighting a kind of guerrilla warfare, engaging, falling back, inflicting casualties, not taking any themselves. Really frustrating, but it looks like in the second engagement we kind of cornered them, hoodwinked them, and it's a very small force. Once that happens, it doesn't take very much at all to completely destroy that force, and that force is destroyed now. We pop this brigade on the defensive. Now this was actually our Benghazi brigade. We're going to keep it in Palestine for the time being. It makes sense to have a force in Palestine for the time being. Everything in kind of Mesopotamia is good. Scrolling down to Aden, we can see anyway from our combat reports that no, we can't. Well, we can see anyway, maybe in one of the other reports, that Aden is besieged. So yeah, one of those columns from Hadramut headed towards Aden. I don't know if another portion of it headed south or whether this is a new force that's been mustered that's kind of heading west. But whatever the weather, the writings on the wall, we're going to have to move into Taiz. It's going to take 12 days. We're set to an offensive posture on the off chance that a Yemeni column kind of appears in the central area, but we need to move here. It's going to take 12 days. They're going to get 3 days rest. We'll see what situation they're in, what their condition is, come early April, and if it's good enough and sort of weather permitting, we'll look to move down to lift the siege at Aden and engage this Yemeni force. But other than that, I don't think there's anything to be too alarmed about. The force that we have here is decent enough. If we remember, this is a modern European fortress that we built in Aden, as opposed to a colonial fort. So it's kind of division plus a brigade, which I think is probably the depot sort of staff, if you like, the kind of the depot workers, who are soldiers. It's a military depot, so they're armed and they're taking up arms to defend the depot as well. And everything looks good in Libya. That's fine. Nothing to worry about there. Let's have a look, flick through other reports. In central Greece, then, it looks like this brigade is kind of set to evade us. We're going to hold in Larissa for the time being, and also hold on an offensive posture to all-out attack. Worst case scenario, we get 2 weeks of reorganizing this force in the area, but it also gives them 2 weeks to kind of hunt down and deal with this brigade. It looks like the Austrians have possibly deposited a force using maritime means in Janina. We need to keep a very careful eye on that. We don't want them developing a large force there. So let's have a look. Fleets in, well, it's good enough, frankly, especially because we don't want core size army sort of deployments kind of emerging here. So to that end, we're going to get the fleet round. It's going to take them 10 days. They're set to intercept, and we're going to sort of blockade this area so that the Austrians don't develop something really nasty and serious here. Going back really quickly, actually talking of core size forces, we had a reserve army corps, which we've deposited into the fortresses of Ornik. But what we're going to do is we're going to switch that with one of the forces that have been badly trashed. Let's have a look. One is worse. I think they're both about as kind of hideously damaged as the other, aren't they? Yeah, we're going to switch this force out in any case. So, and let's pop the reserve army corps into Hussein Avni's command. And that's good stuff. Now this damaged corps, actually we'll just leave it as Vornik for now, There we go, and we'll allow that force to kind of receive replacements and supplies and such. We've still got a small brigade just set to an offensive posture, just in case any small Austrian forces try anything sort of daft in Zvornik. I think once this situation is much more kind of stable, once we've got the Dalmatian coastline kind of under wraps, we can relieve this force to kind of counter-insurgency role in the Balkans. But for the time being, we'll just keep them sort of it's just to ensure we have a force outside the fortress at Zvornik, kind of guarding the Zvornik gap. We will set it to a conservative attack, however. I think it's a very small force. We don't want that kind of charging a kind of a massive army corps or something daft like that. I've addressed the unsupplied force. That's okay. That's actually now in Zvornik, so that will be supplied from now on. Domestic market sales then, 65 units of goods for 230. That's really nice, and that's obviously going to be on the basis of that those diamonds that we had available for domestic market sales. We can see a difference there. 48 units of goods for exports for 118. That's a pretty decent round. Economically happy with that, and we can before we kind of spent money on fortresses and depots and such, we could see it was a decent round for kind of state revenue also. So economically everything's good. Let's just really quickly check our exports. Okay, that's all good. Okay. Okay, so again, a little bit OCD, but a part of it is just the exercise of kind of going through, casting an eye on every single commodity. Because every now and again you might look at it and think, oh my god, where's all my cereals gone? And that kind of compels you then to, like, you know, drill a little bit deeper into the reports. So it's a worthwhile exercise to have a bit of an OCD kind of thing. Now, in terms of we bought 5 units of steel. Yeah, that's fine. We're going to keep steel imports for the time being. It's a very small amount. It's a trickle, just because we don't really have any kind of proper kind of domestic steel production. We do generate a small amount of steel in our economy from the kind of guilds, if you like. Nothing too serious. So yeah, five units manufactured goods to Britain. That's good. Dyes. Dyes is something to keep an eye on, because dyes is consistently exporting well. And of course, countries that have a really well-established textiles industry, like the UK, France, just, you know, Belgium, these countries are going to be looking at sort of dyes for import. Okay, that's good, yeah. Happy with that. No major issues there. Let's just check our assets balance, make sure inflation is good. Sitting at 3%, that's what we want to hear or see. 92% satisfaction, that's fine. None of these boxes are red, so we're going to be meeting domestic demand, even with the exports. So even if all the things we have set for export are sold in the next term, which they won't, be amazing if they did, it'd generate thousands of private revenue. But even if all of those things sold, we would still meet domestic demand. That's basically what this shows you, you know. So that's why, for example, cereals looks like it's dramatically declining. That's on the basis that if all of the cereals that we have set for export are sold, our next stock would be 49, which is fine because we've set to hold 50 anyway, so that's good. Okay, no worries or concerns there. Everything looks really decent. Everything's fine. I did already flick through this. We sent Britain a unilateral support, promised local support, mainly just to kind of bolster relations. Obviously, any war on the side of Britain wouldn't really matter now because we're going to suffer war weariness anyway. But in any case, a war with Britain on your side at this time is not such a bad thing. Yeah, that's fine. Lots of, what have we got? Gems, 3 units of gems, cereals and wool. Okay, fine. Let's just check gems again. We had 8 last turn, 6 this time. Okay, fine, good. Okay, that's fine. Going to pop you guys on hold past turn, and we'll see you in, late March. Okay, welcome back then. Early April, not late March, as we are. And, yeah, again, no major significant developments. And in a weird way, that's sort of good news because we're just really looking to buy time here. The only kind of engagement was at Larissa, where we managed to kind of zero in on this Austrian kind of light cavalry brigade that's making a nuisance of itself behind our lines. And yeah, pretty good, fairly successful operation by the Cavalry Division we have there. Nailed 700 of them, they've got 1400 altogether, so kind of half the force destroyed. And yeah, in the win column, I think. We'll keep the Cavalry Division in place. with the same objective, really, to kind of roll up this cavalry brigade or force it to fall back towards Janina. Weather is still not great. It's kind of early April, so April showers. That does slow down kind of movement. I think probably once we get to kind of May, when things start drying up, we'll kind of look to really close the bag on this sort of operation the Austrians have going in Greece, which is a distraction, but it's not tying up forces that are really kind of teeth arms forces that would necessarily be up in Bosnia. But anyway, certainly this cavalry division would be quite handy up here somewhere at some point soon. In terms of what's happening in Bosnia, then, Omar Pasha's force is okay. He's still got supplies. Abdulkarim Nadir's force is collecting replacements, but at a much slower rate because it's kind of up on the sort of Sava. So we want to, I think, probably switch his force. We've got this cavalry division that needs to be reconstructed. We're going to switch his force, I think, with Hussein Avni, who's received a lot of replacements this turn, and his force is pretty much up to scratch now, as far as I can see. So we're going to move Hussein Avni into place. He's set to hold at all costs, and we're going to move Abdulkarim Nadir south. We're going to get him to evade combat and enter structure. Force march 70%. Yeah, why not? What the hell? We want to get him out of there as quickly as possible. So yeah, Hussein Avni's going to switch out with him, and I think what we're going to do also is this cavalry division we're going to hook up with Abdulkarim Nadir's force. I'm not sure if that actually worked or not. There's usually an indicator that we'll just hope that sort of worked. In fact, we're not going to do that. We're just going to put that cavalry division inside the structure. There we go. And that cavalry division will be kind of fused with Abdulkarim Nadir's force, I think, because this cavalry division needs to be completely reconstructed. So that's it. Again, all quiet on the Western Front, which is good news sort of thing. We've got those supplies moving towards Sofia, and we have an additional 2 supply trains being built in Smyrna. Nothing there yet. Big economic development really here is that we have our first section of railroad, which is in Constantinople. I mean, this in a lot of cases will double the production of a lot of these factories, and of course, our industrial development is heavily centered towards Constantinople. So this is a really, really big development. The thing we have to keep an eye on is it doesn't just increase the production of these things; it does make these manufactories much more resource hungry. So I need to keep a bit of an eye on that. These manufactories will now consume more coal. Consume a little bit more capital, consume things like mechanical parts, iron. So we need to keep a bit of an eye on our raw materials because, with a lot of our manufacturing centered around Constantinople, and with railroad development sort of now kind of set up in the area, we're looking at a much higher rate of production, but also consumption of certain kinds of raw materials. The really important thing is virtually all of our industrial military complex, for the most part, is centered around Constantinople. I think we might have a small manufacturing arms shop also in Smyrna, but overwhelmingly it's in Constantinople. So you've got a military gear factory that kicks out 2 units of supply a turn, an ammunition shop which is 4 units of ammunition plus 1 of supply, and our shipbuilding plant also generates 3 supply. So that's really, really good, and that's going to hopefully sort of begin nudging these supplies outwards, sort of towards Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is exactly where we need them. Take a bit of time for that to happen, of course, but yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. That's good news. In 15 days' time, this next section of railroad will be completed at Adrianople, so that'll be visible to us, connecting Constantinople up to Adrianople. And in Adrianople, we've got cereals farms, but crucially a tobacco plantation, which we also have a tobacco plantation just outside the city of Constantinople. So we're looking at increased tobacco yields really in the next month fairly significantly. It's going to take longer for the remaining sections to complete. 150 days for Salonika, 225 for Kavala, and then the section in Smyrna is going to be 90 days and 330 for Bursa. And we might be in a position actually to, I should say, I've already expended some state revenue, released some state revenue and manufactured goods to increase the size of the depot in Zvornik, which we're already doing. I did that because I thought I don't want to forget this, it's too important. So as soon as I remembered it, I kind of did it before I sort of hit unrecord. Or hit unpause, I should say. Let's have a look. Izmit, are we there yet? 225, what is our operational costs? Operational costs 155. Yeah, that should be fine. So that's good. Inflation sort of 3%. Yeah, next section of railroad. So that will link up Smyrna to kind of Constantinople through Izmit and Bursa, and yeah, that's really, really good stuff. So yeah, really rapid railroad development we're seeing now, and that's the important thing. There's no point building more manufactories really and spreading them out, because what we have then is a really, really, sprawling economy that's, not really very well connected, and is very unproductive. We want to make sure that we kind of focus our industrial development, make sure that it's really, really productive, and use the kind of all the technologies available to us. But this will really show that railroad development is an absolute economic game changer for this period. You just cannot have an industrial revolution without railroads. Otherwise, you just have these cities like Constantinople generating, even with lots of factories, it might be quite productive, but it's very, very, very low efficiency and this sort of thing. Yeah, that's it pretty much. Let's have a quick check of the economy, and we'll have a quick gander at the colonies also. So we can now see increased production of tobacco already. That's good. I'll set fish to 20. Actually, we've always got 50 manufactured goods. Textiles exports appear to be dropping off, and keep an eye on that. Now, coal we have set for export. Let's just really quickly check how much coal is wasted at the moment. There's probably a reasonable amount. Yeah, expenses coming. Okay, so nothing yet. Craftsman production is still 12 though, and our overall consumption is national market sales. Expenses coming from ships usage. Structure expenses is 17. So I think 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah. I think it's going to be time that we sort of cease offering coal as an export commodity. So it's 185. We'll keep an eye on that figure, because at some point when we do have areas that we can develop for coal production, but that's the other thing with railroads. It's not just that they themselves eat up coal, but when they increase the productivity of the region, those factories start consuming a lot more coal as well. They start becoming kind of modern industrial factories really, as opposed to kind of sort of early modern factories, not kind of guild-based, but like the kind of textile mills and stuff you might have had in the early modern period, which were capitalist in character, but just not very productive. Okay. The other thing to look at is mechanical parts. Let's have a quick gander at mechanical parts. That is an inorganic thing. Structure expenses 5, national market sales, and we've got crafts production of 2. So I think it's going to be the same story really. Is there any wastage? Is there no wastage or anything for these yet? No. Yeah, same's going to be the case with mechanical parts, because we're going to have to start importing mechanical parts. I mean, we're not really sold any of this stuff. There we go. So mechanical parts. Yeah, our kind of craftsmen produce 2 units, and we need 6 basically. 5 for operational costs, which is now obviously jumped, and +1 for domestic market sales. And iron is the other thing we're going to keep an eye on. Let's have a look. Now, I did build an extraction in Bulgaria, but it's a very unproductive extraction because there's no railroads. It's 1 unit. Craftsmen produce 4. Structure expenses 9, yeah. So we don't actually have any iron for export anyway. But let's have a quick gander at iron. So we need to start looking at these strategic resources now. So we've got iron production, 2 in Van, or 2 possible. The possibility to develop 2 kind of mines in Van. So there's 3. Plus another one just down here. You're going to be kidding me. Okay. Yeah. Focus on that at the moment. Yeah, so +1 in kind of Lebanon. Yeah, not a huge amount, is there? Let's have a look at the European Peninsula, the Balkan Peninsula. I mean, those sites with railroads would produce sufficient amount of what we need now, but you know, it's going to be some wait, some time. Probably building railroads. Right, there we go. That's what it is now anyway. There will be some prospecting for iron and coal that will just happen naturally, so we'll keep an eye on that. Export 65 units for just under 220. That's domestic consumption. Export 61 units of merchandises for 144. So yeah, exports have gone up. That's good to see. What are our gems are sitting at 4. Okay. Yeah, okay, happy with that. So we've made some kind of restructuring with our economy then, just to ensure that strategic resources aren't being sold, basically. Let's really quickly check our raiding fleet that we sent up. It's not even arrived there yet, and it's, yeah, completely exhausted. It's just, there's no point doing that, is there? And, yeah, the British are not interested in providing us with docking rights. That's a shame. So we'll set these guys to evade combat, passive posture, get them back to Smyrna. That was a wasted expedition. It's going to take 41 days, probably due to poor weather, but those ships may very well be damaged slightly. That said, we do have a nice little kind of stockpile of replacement parts for ships that have kind of intentionally built up. Okay, fine. That's it economically. Nothing else needs to be done, I don't think. Let's go back to this kind of revolt in sort of where is it? Sort of Beirut, Lebanon. Let's see if there's any kind of reports on this. Because sometimes if there's a kind of, you know, like you might have a kind of more sort of significant report that suggests, oh, here we go, like this. Okay, the Maronite Christian peasants in Lebanon, stirred by their clergy, revolted against the Jews' feudal overlords and tried to establish a peasant republic. In 3 days, 60 villages were destroyed in the vicinity of Beirut. The event stirred the Muslim population of Damascus to attack the Christian minority in Syria. God, this is Syria. This is going brilliant. The American and Dutch consuls were killed in the disturbances by the mob. Oh, for God's sake. Causing serious diplomatic incidents. French Emperor Napoleon suddenly spoke out in the defense of the Syrian Christians and made known his intention of sending troops to Syria. Wonderful. Okay. Let's check our foreign relations. That's obviously upsetting. So you can see the war with Austria sprawled ever so slightly, with Baden, Saxony and Bavaria coming to Austria's aid. That's no significant sort of issue really, but let's have a look at France. Now we do have a trade deal with France. They're at war with Parma. Okay, we're going to propose a state visit, I think. Yeah, we're going to propose a state visit. Try and shore up relations a little bit, and this has to be dealt with bloody quickly, as far as I can see. Alright, how long is it going to take you to march there? 23 days. 9 days by sea, well, we'll take that. Yeah, this has to be nipped in the bud very quickly indeed. So pillaging Damascus as well, I guess it's a result of that event. Right, we'll keep a careful eye on that. Yeah, so I was actually about to say, it's always worth checking if you see a revolt, just to see if there's a, because, you know, again, it might suggest some ramifications, that it might spread, that other powers are taking an interest. So yeah, obviously, these are kind of Christians, and some Europeans are going to, Western Europeans are going to be looking to maybe kind of utilize that a little bit. We'll keep a very careful eye on that indeed. Hopefully that it's just bluff from Paris. Yeah, it's just bluff and kind of bluster, but we shall see. We don't really want to wind up in a war with France just now anyway. We have had reports of fairly significant battles around Tunis, and I get the impression the French are trying to kind of bring the locals in Tunisia to heel, and having some difficulty doing that, but you know, we'll keep an eye on that situation as well. Okay, let's just quickly check the units of what's been sold then. So it's 2 units of coal. That's going to stop now, of course. 5 units of manufactured goods. 3 units of tobacco, nitrates, dyes, fruits. Okay. Hopefully we're going to start shifting more cereals now. 7, 8, 9 units of cereals. Good stuff. Okay. Yeah, Britain declined our proposal for mutual supply. That's a real shame. That's it. That's all the reports then. So we've got the fleet moving into place. What, 2 days away? In fact, we sort of want the fleet here, really, don't we? Yeah, let's get the fleet here, sort of Janina. No, in fact, what the hell, let's move north. Bottle them up. Bottle the Adriatic up completely. Alright, so we've got these guys heading into, we'll get them to enter the structure once they're at Sofia. They're 3 days away. We're switching out Hussein Avni for Abu Karim. Good stuff. We might then release Khurshid Pasha and get him to link up with Hussein Avni's force. I don't know. We've got 2 cavalry divisions, 3 infantry corps under Osman, or Omar Pasha rather. Okay. Some Italian partisans have been landed in Dalmatia. That's interesting. It's interesting the Austrians haven't sought to take that back. Once Abu Karim's force is in kind of good shape and we've got the supply situation under control, we're going to press for a siege at Kataro. The good thing with Kataro is that place is going to be full of supplies. So, yeah, free money for everyone sort of thing. We'll probably dock the main fleet in Tirana, and then when the siege starts, we'll release it to basically blockade Kataro once we get Hussein Avni there. But first of all, we need to kind of restructure and reorganize Abu Karim's force, and then, yeah, there will be a position to do that. Okay, I think that's it. No other moves. Next term we'll have Constantinople linked up with Adrianople, and yeah, that's good stuff. And just quickly scanning around the map, making sure I've not missed any kind of little insurgents or revolts or anything. Oh, that's right, Aden. Okay. How long is it going to take him? 14 days. What's the situation? Ammunition's starting to run a little bit low. We'll give it another fortnight. We'll sit on the defensive in Taiz. That will just slightly accelerate recovery, cohesion recovery. Weather looks good. It's only going to get better, I guess. Although I don't know. Weather cycles obviously vary from where you are on the planet, but I'm hoping that early April in Yemen will be something similar to kind of Southeast Europe, and we'll have a kind of dry period, so we'll be able to move fairly quickly once our force is organised. Going to pop you on pause then, past turn, and we'll be back in late April. Yeah, see you then. Okay, welcome back then, late April, and let's have a look at the situation. Again, no significant kind of engagements in the kind of European theatre. Again, that's sort of good. That's what we're looking for. Supply situation's not good, but we are keeping a kind of bit of an eye on that. The forces are kind of keeping their heads above water, but Hussein Avni's now in the fortress at Zvornik, or is he? I beg your pardon. Abdul Karim Adir is in the fortress at Zvornik, and he switched out with Hussein Avni. So his force has already spent sort of, I think it took him 6 to 9 days to march there. So he's already kind of managed to receive some replacements. His force is being reorganised. What I have done is taken the liberty of detaching Osman. The reason being is we can see some kind of Austrian force, maybe a fragment of a force. It looks like an artillery brigade. It's not securing any kind of control over anything, but that obviously has to be dealt with. So we're going to move Osman to kind of deal with this force. I gather it's just an artillery brigade. There's a good chance we'll just secure ourselves some free guns there. But I think this might have been the force that was possibly, I don't know. Yeah, that was possibly in Janina, has somehow worked its way north, has kind of slipped through the cordon that we had set up in Macedonia. Now we're going to be moving these Bashir Bazooks south. The net is kind of closing on Larissa now. It looks like the cavalry brigade that was in Larissa has fallen back to Janina, and they've got a supply detachment in Janina also. But yeah, weather is starting to clear up, and it's time to close the net, I think, on these boys. We've got a cavalry force in place. We're going to, not cavalry force, our fleet. We're going to move that to directly outside Janina now, I think, and we're going to set, actually we won't set to fleet bombardment yet, just in case it tries to do that at Kataro. We end up getting kind of navy guns causing us problems. So, yeah, the other thing that we're going to do, I think, is the switch out. So this army corps is a kind of reserve system that we've got, which kind of like we did have in Adrianople when we were fighting the Russians. We're going to switch that out with the most damaged formation, which I think is probably this one. Yeah, so we're going to switch that into Abdul Karim's command. So he's got a fresh force, and then he's just got this corps to basically square away. And that's okay, because, I mean, his cavalry force has been detached anyway, so he won't have cavalry for a period of time. We'll pop that army corps in to the fortress, and yeah, that's all good. Cavalry Division, Reserve Corps, check, check, check. And that's the other Cavalry Division that's basically being reconstructed. So we'll leave that. In fact, we might as well actually just put that into Abdul Karim's command. That'll take a bit of time to receive replacements, because entirely new elements need to be constructed there. That Cavalry Division was virtually blanked out. See, here's tricky. Omar Pasha is activated. Hussein Avni is in a fairly strong defensive position, as far as I can see. The temptation here is to, I won't do it. I'm not going to be too impulsive, but I think very soon we're going to have to get, we'll keep this force to evade combat. That will mean accelerate replacements. Yeah, we'll leave as is for now, but I think probably in May we're going to send a force. I guess the plan was always Hussein Avni, wasn't it? We'll send Hussein Avni to Kataro, to besiege Kataro, because if we don't have Omar in the centre, he can't lend his support, he can't march to the sound of the guns at Sava, so we do want to keep him there. We want to keep a really careful, tight configuration to make sure that we have, you know, every advantage that we can have, really. So the railroad's complete to Adrianople. That's excellent. Yeah, and we can now see our first, from space, so to speak, our first section of railway. Okay, compared to Western Europe, it's a drop in the ocean, but, you know, we'll take it. And we've got plenty more being constructed also, so we will start seeing in the next couple of years much more kind of, you know, much more kind of serious development. So the only engagement there was at Beirut with this extremely disconcerting Christian revolt, inflicted 800 casualties. There's a force of 6,300. I wonder how long it would take to move the Baghdad division on the basis of riverine points to too long, way too long. Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, without riverine points, it's going to take him what? Palmyra, 43, 29, and 45. That's like a month. It's too long. The problem with keep constructing units every time you have an insurgency you want to deal with is, got a whole division here, is it just means you end up with lots of kind of small units scattered everywhere, and it becomes a bit unwieldy. And these units have to be fed, you know, and they have to receive replacements also. Small units discharge officers and men every single turn, so it just means that we have less of a building capacity. It means that more of our kind of strategic kind of logistical tail is tied up with kind of bolstering kind of, you know, small kind of units. Right, let's take a bit of a gamble. Things have been so stable in Libya for so long, 22 days. We're going to detach the Libyan or the Tripoli division for a very short period of time. And to ensure that this doesn't go spectacularly wrong, we are going to build a modern fortress. 55 revenue, 21 manufactured goods, 10 steel. Let's do it. It's something we were going to do at some point anyway, so sort of why not now, you know. It's good. So that naval patrol is set to evade combat. It's just passing through the Gibraltar Straits. Yeah, I think there's nothing else we can do this turn, really. Yeah, it's amazing how long it takes. It takes one to sort of like, you know, deal with a heavy defeat like that, you know, to replace losses and this sort of thing. And these irritating forces in the rear obviously need to be dealt with as well. But yeah, we'll give Abdul Karim Nadir another turn or two to get his kind of forces back up to scratch. I can't even move these. You see, these supply trains now blocked, aren't they? It's really irritating. So we need to kind of clear the path. We use the Cavalry Division. Hopefully that'll do the job. What we will do is... No, we won't sit the Reserve Division outside. No, we'll leave as is for now. Move the Bashi Bazooks in and keep the Cavalry Division here for the time being. We're going to move that in 16 days. Yeah, we'll leave it for another turn, just to get this organisation back up to scratch. And weather. We need weather to clear up. It's actually only in Epirus now that it's a problem, but okay. Right, good. Nothing to worry about there. Now, one interesting development. Replacements, railroad, depot extension, check, check, check. Is this. So Austria has demanded France remove several of their ministers that are opposed or supposedly hostile to these tensions have now evolved into a major crisis. That would be outstanding, because the real worry is, of course, is that Napoleon III, being a bit of a kind of belligerent adventurer, took a bit of an interest in the revolt that's currently happening in Lebanon. The hope is here that this kind of distracts him a little bit, and of course having France, you know, in alliance with kind of Piedmont, Sardinia, at war with Austria would be an absolute godsend. It would be perfect. We'll see what happens. I mean, of course, most crises don't end in a war, but it's going to be a major crisis, and it will hurt their relations. So we'll keep a careful eye on that. That crisis, of course, we'll get the report back of that next turn in early May. Really slow round economically in terms of exports anyway. Bit of a drop off in exports. I'm not sure the reason for that is, but domestic market sales 64 for 201, that's fine, but yeah, nearly a third reduction in exports, although roughly the same amounts of units of goods shifted. And yeah, but we can see that tobacco production is increasing, and that's good. That's going to start sort of, I think, having a noticeable effect soon. So 176 coal this turn, check, 176. So that shows that we are going to have to start focusing on some coal production soon. Supplies are increasing, that's good. Timber is declining ever so slightly. Yeah, I mean, some of those manufactories will eat timber, yeah. I'm losing wood, as the actress said to the ecumenical. Dyes up to 50. Let's have a look at dyes exports. 8. It's intriguing that dyes are really consistent. That's Belgium. Mechanical parts. There we go, yeah, mechanical parts sharply declining, so 4 units per turn deficit on those. We might be in a position soon to build a mechanical parts factory, actually. I think we have the technology to do that. Let's quickly check. No, we do not. Let's have a quick look at technology then and see what that is. It's I'm trying to think, precision machining, isn't it? Yeah. That's not far off, actually. And I think the sort of foreign access to those goods is relatively good. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the availability, North Germany, 433 units, UK, 316, 243, with almost no demand for them. So these are eminently available for import, but of course, ultimately, we do want to develop a domestic capacity for those. We don't have yet the ability, to build precise machines, precision machine tools, so we can't actually build mechanical parts yet. Mechanical parts are basically like special kinds of manufactured goods that facilitate the production of manufactured goods. So, yeah, machine, as you might imagine, factory machines and this sort of thing. threshing machines and whatnot. Okay, nothing to be too concerned about there. No reports of any kind of doom. Yeah, nothing to be too concerned about there. Let's have a quick look at Aden, see what's going on. Yeah, not activated this turn, Zarif Pasha, but his organisation is getting decent. He's got supplies for the time being. I think probably by early to late May we'll be in a position to kind of lift the siege at Aden. And so far the structure is besieged but intact, so will afford this force a significant defensive advantage in their supplies. Of course, this fortress is also protecting a port or an anchorage, so supplies there are sound. Yeah, good to see that. Okay, it's the garrison in Constantinople, which is fine. Okay, time to pass turn. I think there's nothing else we can do this turn. Pop you on pause and we'll see you in early May. Okay, welcome back. Early May. And let's have a gander at what's happened. So again, quiet on the Western Front, although we are now seeing Austrian forces manoeuvre into place. Let's have a look. This is just an extension of the fortress. It looks like we have a core-sized force, approximately, with some support units that's retaken Dalmatia, split, and a large Austrian force now is sitting at Savonia. I think this is our time to move to begin the Dalmatian operation. So to that end, Abdul Karim is going to move north, hold a defensive line at Sava. Hussein Avni, who is a fast mover anyway, is going to set to an offensive, not an assault posture, but an offensive posture, and is going to move. It's going to take him 6 days, and he is going to sit outside Kataro and besiege the fortress at Kataro. The fleet, let's put the fleet. Actually, I'm not going to put the fleet in Albania. The reason being is Albania is just a really unstable region, isn't it? I don't want to do something completely hideous, like lose the fleet to some kind of I don't know, Albanian rebellion or something. I'm sure that wouldn't happen, but it's pretty long odds, but you never know. So send the fleet back to Constantinople. Keep Omar anchored in the centre so he can support either flank. That's the plan. Now we've got this. We've secured the rear. God knows what happened to that Austrian kind of brigade. Maybe it was just destroyed or it surrendered or something. I don't think there's any combat reports pertaining to it. No, there is not. So God knows. Maybe it's out of view for whatever reason. But anyway, we're going to move the supply convoy from Sofia up to join Omar Pasha. We're sending 2 empty supply carts back to Sofia, and at Smyrna, the 2 constructed supply forces are going to move up and hook up with Abdul Karim Nadir's force. That's basically the plan. So kind of doing supply shuttle runs for the time being. In order to resolve the supply problem, we are producing more supply than we need, which is to say supply will start converting and depositing onto the map, but we want that to happen a little bit quicker, so we've actually pushed for imports of supplies as well. The only engagement then was at Beirut, where we experienced a defeat. As any brigade-sized force, it fell back to Damascus. The division is due to land in 8 days, and the hope is that we're going to deal with this rebellion that's dragged on for a month, alarmingly, because of course France has taken an interest in this, and it's obviously gotten a bit of bad press in the West. So yeah, we want that resolved as quickly as possible, really. Replacements received, good. That's obviously the fall of Split or the harbour there. Okay, to be expected. Fine. Clausewitzian school. Okay, so let's move on to Karl von Clausewitz next. As you probably appreciate, a theoretical kind of military development with no immediate ramifications. Another slow run, although exports are picked up sort of slowly. Or slightly, I should say. 134 exports. 54 units of goods, 64 national market sales. We are importing a small amount of tea from Japan, just for domestic consumption. Exports for tobacco pretty much doubled, which is expected, or was anticipated. Okay, we'll push that up. Coal 169, declining gradually, as expected. Iron, yeah, it's going to gradually decline as well. Timber also. So coal, iron, and timber are all commodities that we don't produce enough now to meet. Well, mechanical parts is a manufactured good also. But okay. Yeah, coal, iron, and timber. Yeah, not a terrible turn economically. That's okay. Happy with that. I mean, this war is far less disruptive than the kind of Crimean War. Yeah, the siege of Kataro is set to begin come late May. In terms of other reports, then, France declined our state visit. Not good. Let's have a look then at the crisis between France and Austria. So Austria is the initiator. They both play pressure support. So let's have a look. The prestige stash is 441. Just cause indicator is at -1. Which means I think it's basically +1 to France. Crisis intensity 49. Dominance 0. So it's even Stevens. And they both pressure supports and diplomatic insult. Prestige stash dramatically increased 749. Austria issues an ultimatum. France pressure supports. Pressure supports -1. Crisis intensity spiked to 79. Dominance is 2 for the initiator. So that's Austria is pretty much almost there. Issuing an ultimatum is going in heavy. It seems to have worked. Forge a claim. Hostile press campaign. Prestige stash has gone down to 617. Just cause indicator -1, so it's still +1 to France. It still seems largely unjust. Crisis intensity 91. Please make it a war. Dominance 2, so yeah, that's still in the bag for Austria. Has it got the war? Oh, 101, or has it? I don't know. Okay, let's have a look. Diplomatic insult, forged claim. So it's 617 prestige stash, ended at minus. So basically it's a diplomatic victory for Austria. Well, no, for France. I beg your pardon. It's one mistake, just cause. Okay, so yeah, God, I really wish I could understand this better. Tensions were generated by contentious matters around behaviour of several ministers. These tense debates and foul play abounded during the crisis, and Austrian diplomats slammed the door to all negotiations. This might mean war. Relationships with the two countries have never been so bad. Diplomats from France were brilliant, and humiliated the plenipotentiaries from Austria. I guess it's the just cause thing then, is the significant thing. Just cause remains at -1, which I think means +1 for France. Yeah. I thought, God knows. Prestige going for France is 500 prestige, 100 for Austria, so they still gain something, but it's a diplomatic victory, but intensity is 100. So what does that mean? Does that mean war? Let's have a look. No, it doesn't, but -89 in relation to France. So could very possibly happen. That would be excellent news for us. Yeah, it's amazing. You can play this game for years, and it's not explained in the manual, or if it is, I've just missed it. But I've read the manual quite a few times and tend to find parts in the manual. But I've never really experienced this myself. So yeah, weird. Okay. Alright, let's check the economy, make sure everything is set. I have kind of done that anyway, but I just always like to double check it. And we'll just check our balance. Assets balance 91, 3% inflation. Let's quickly check. Canned goods. $76.50. Okay, that's fine. I think that's everything. Okay, we'll pass turn to late May, and we'll leave it there. I think in late May, but let's we just want to see if the beginning of the siege kind of comes off really, and also that the Palestine revolt is kind of wrapped up because that is a concern. Yeah, hopefully the kind of the Franco-Austrian crisis will kind of detract from any interest France had of getting involved. He's still not activated anyway. How long will it take to march? 16 days. We'll have to wait for activation, I think, before we kind of lift the siege and aid him. Let's just have a check of the fortress, though. Structure's intact, good. And for the most part, supplied also. Yeah, we'll pass turn, and that's fine. Yeah, we'll pass turn. I'll put your pause and see you in late May. Okay, welcome back then. Late May, and let's have a sort of look through the reports. Now, no major engagement again in Bosnia. Again, that's sort of okay with us. I mean, well, I say no major engagement. There was an engagement, but it wasn't a kind of significant battle. It looks like an attempt by the Austrians to kind of get, a couple of light cavalry forces or light kind of, forces into Bosnia and possibly into the kind of rear to develop what's been going on here really, which is this endless kind of attempt to capture this Austrian force. We've got a cavalry division that's 1 day away. We'll set to offensive posture, and that corps, I think it's the remnants of an army corps, with really just what remains of it, I think, is artillery. But anyway, there is an Austrian force in Montenegro. That force can no longer rejoin really unless it manages to slip through, which I don't think it'll be able to. But Hussein Avni is in place. The siege of Kataro has begun in late May. How long it takes, I don't know, but he's got support of Omar Pasha, and we've got Abdul Karim Nadir setting a blocking position up on the banks of the Sava. He's going to keep. What general do we have? I'm really terrible with sort of. Is it Joseph Yulier? I'm not too sure how to pronounce his name. And we've got Ferdinand in Dalmatia with what looks like a kind of corps, or a padded out corps. It's a corps with a few brigades kind of attached. But this is the more significant force. But if he moves across the Sava, he's got the same problem we had. He's crossing a river. He's going against a prepared defence that is also supported by Omar Pasha. So I'm feeling fairly safe on the banks of the Sava here. But yeah, the time now is to develop the left flank, I think. Secure Kataro, retake Dalmatia, and then begin to kind of hook round. We could even build a fortress at Dalmatia, which would act as a holding force, which would relieve Hussein Avni for a kind of left hook, which would be joined by Omar Pasha. That's going to be the plan. Maybe even looking to take, well, definitely looking to take Zagreb, and then possibly develop that position on further to either Vienna or central Hungary, or both. But the first thing that has to fall is Kataro. Now, sieges can take a long time, and we do want to get the deal wrapped up this year. The reason being is we can look at the rebellion in the southern Caucasus now kind of very much been dealt with. Also, if we scroll over to the war involving both Prussia and Russia, the Russians, it appears, have forced a landing at Malmö, and they're developing that also into the kind of interior, and have hooked up with what looks like a Prussian landing at Uppsala. So yeah, the Swedish war, I should say, is getting a little bit dicey for Sweden. Keep an eye on that situation, but yeah, Italy's holding out. I mean, God, they've still got Venice, which is great. Let's have a quick check on sort of national morale. Austrian national morale sits at 105. Damn, ours is at 81. So I don't know how their national morale has crept up again. Really, France is 107, but the only basis for that is they must have inflicted a really serious defeat in the field of the Italians, I would guess. Either that or maybe retaking Dalmatia for them gives them a significant national morale boost. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to besiege Kataro, and then we're going to look to now. I mean, our force is now in pretty good shape. We do have a cavalry division still being reconstructed. That cavalry division is going to join Hussein Avenue once it's done, and once Osman has finished chasing this brigade all over the Balkans, he's going to move north, and he's going to hook up with Abdul Karim's force, so that also has a mobile component. The main problem at the moment is the two flanks don't actually have cavalry divisions, because one was decimated, the other is running around the Balkans chasing this kind of brigade. The problem is if we chase it with another brigade, each engagement will be close, will be kind of inconclusive, they'll fall back, they'll take some other territory, it'll just go on forever, so we have to chase it with a much kind of a far more superior force. Now, talking of far more superior forces guaranteeing a victory, the infantry division that landed at Beirut, in fact, did not win. God knows how. They lost 1,600 men, inflicted 307 casualties. Maybe it's the fact that it was a forced landing. This isn't a marine division or anything like that. Maybe it was engaged. Pretty rare at this time on the kind of beachfront. But anyway, we've set it to evade combat. We've got the brigade, which recovered in Damascus, moving back in. It's going to take 11 days. And we really, really want this kind of Maronite rebellion in Beirut to be sort of dealt with, frankly. It's getting irritating. It's a concern. Zarif Pasha is still inactivated. It would take him 15 days. But his force is completely recovered and organised, so we're going to go with that. 15 days is fine. We can't force march him, he's not activated, but he'll be sat on a defensive posture. But once he's there, he can start, regaining control of the region. And once he's activated, he can look to kind of forcefully lift the siege at Aden. Yeah, I think that is it. In terms of combat news. Yeah, replacements going out. These congratulations are, of course, with the destruction of 2 Austrian brigades that try to slip through, probably into the rear, to conduct some kind of sort of supply-damaging insurgency. The supply situation looks significantly improved. I think probably we can stop our shuttle runs soon. It looks like supplies are now actually getting up into theatre, which is really good to see. So, yeah, we'll stop the shuttle runs and make sure that all of these armies have a sort of fairly even number of supply trains attached to them. Yeah. Economically, let's have a look. Bought 1 steel, 5 minutes, 1 supply, 5 minutes of steel. Exports 4 tobacco, 5, 7 manufactured goods. So that's pretty decent around economically. It looks fairly good. 63 units on the national market for 206, 120 for exports, 45 units, that's okay. 10 units imports. Yeah, that's fine. Perfectly happy with that. Let's quickly check our commodities. See, now we are going to be in a position to be exporting a lot more tobacco. We're starting to basically, there's a bit of a lag really between the kind of availability of tobacco on the world market that we're making available and that which will be imported by others. So a bit of a lag. Coal 160, declining. 59 on iron. Minerals is good. 76 on timber. I think was it not 76 before? It may have leveled out. Let's have a look. No, it's still declining. It's only 1 unit per term deficit. Very good. Yeah, no problems there. Let's have a quick look at the assets balance. I think I just double clicked assets balance. That's a shame. 3% inflation still. That's okay. Coal's declining by quite a bit. It's about 8 units per turn, isn't it? Okay, well, there's no deficits anyway, even on the basis of everything on export being sold. Let's just very quickly check. That's the most annoying feature of this game, is when you click and it sort of activates the economic map mode. Let's have a quick look at tobacco very quickly. Because we're building up a bit of a stockpile of tobacco now, so we still get imports of supplies. That's good. Tobacco. Yeah, so demand for the most part still far outstrips supply, and we can see that in America they've got a Chesapeake 53 units, and yeah, 53 units is a lot, isn't it? The Americans really produce a lot of tobacco. It's a modern industrial state with railways and stuff at the end of the day. But we are now we're second place though, 9 units, and so bear in mind that the Americans can't supply enough for the international demand. I beg your pardon. I mean, demand is set at 108. We're providing 9, and we're only selling 4. South Brazil is providing 6, but demand is 7. So at some point, that's going to fall onto us. We're going to be selling that stock fairly quickly, because it won't take long to basically figure out that we've now increased production of tobacco. And that will increase further, of course. Cavala's got 1 tobacco plantation, and there are 2 tobacco plantations at Salonika. 105 days, it's a little while off. And then we've got tobacco also up in Plevna, 2 units, and they're not both being exploited. Mind you, the last tobacco plantation is going to be super expensive. They gradually become more expensive because it reflects the kind of, I suppose, the distortions that are being developed in the economy through, focusing heavily on one particular kind of commodity, right? So the last one will be 908 capital, a little way off that yet. Plus we need 200 on top of that for our operational costs. Okay, but economically, that's okay, not a terrible turn. France does not appear to have declared war on Austria yet, or vice versa. Shame, France, because it's a really good opportunity for you to do this. It would really rather benefit us. Looks like the Italian rebellion in the south has been dealt with, and Abruzzo's rejoined the Sicilian nation, the Kingdom of 2 Sicilies. Okay, that's it. So, a bit of a kind of funny sort of session, really, because I suppose a lot of this was focused on recovery, consolidating our position, particularly after what was a really heavy defeat. We kind of flew through that gap into Bosnia. We still had supplies, we had 3 really good armies. We rolled the dice a bit, it didn't come off, and it's taken, a good couple of months, really, to get these forces back into shape. And they are kind of very much back in shape. But, of course, we've got forces being tied up, running around like headless chickens, trying to deal with this this Austrian brigade. But the siege has begun. The left flank is now kind of being formed under Hussein Avni. He's got a pretty decent force, 81,000 plus 448 guns, and yeah, he's going to sit tight at Kataro. Once the main fleet is reorganised, we'll send them to sit off Kataro and the Adriatic and provide support by fire for that siege. But it's going to take a while. There's a well-defended fortress that has a depot in it. Fisherman's Port Depot Quarry. It's a level 1 fortress, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, we don't have any siege guns, unfortunately, in play there. But we could build siege guns, but they're very slow. They kind of slow forces down, really. And I think the best bet is just to sit tight. And at some point, once we've damaged the fortress enough, assaulted. Yeah, that's it, really. The plan is that roll up the left flank, roll up Dalmatia, Zagreb, and then from there we can maybe spring forward to a bit more of a kind of adventurous late summer, autumn, maybe even a winter campaign towards Vienna. We'll see what happens, of course. If Austria goes to war with France, that'll be outstanding. Italy's still holding out. Italy still holds Venice, which is very exciting. The Caucasus rebellion has been wrapped up, and Russia is now making headway in the war against Sweden. And the only other real concern for us, of course, is this Lebanese Christian kind of revolt. We need to get this dealt with really, really quickly, which I've been saying for sort of a month now. But yeah, that's it. Next turn then we'll pick up in early June. We'll try not to leave it quite so long next time. And yeah, pick up in early June. So I'll pass turn after this recording. And yeah, pretty much all the moves that I plan to make would have already been made, really. There's going to be no significant movement in the European theatre. On the Western Front, the main plan really is to just focus on Kataro, wait out the fortress, besiege it, so we can kind of starve it of supplies. And yeah, that'll be it. So yeah, thanks for watching this video, and I shall see you in early June in the next one. Thanks for watching.